What's up, guys? This is Dave from The Disorderly. I'm joined once again by our very good friend, Mr. Andrew Volpe. We're back for another installment of our series. We're calling We Read the Book. It's when we suffer the pains of reading some piece of literature or some such nonsense, and then we watch the film that it's been horribly repurposed for. We've done The Meg. We've done Hold the Dark. What else? Altered Carbon. We've done a few different ones. So if you want to go back and kind of click through the archives, you can kind of get a sense of what we've done. And actually, I think whoever the hell made the Meg is still copyright struck us for literally just two guys just audio of two guys talking about their film. So that is no longer available for your listening delights. But everything else. Please go back. Go back. Throw us a like.
They just couldn't handle the truth about the Meg. We were trying to tell the public how it really was.
No, it's just the hardest one for me to swallow. I'm so bitter. There's no footage. There's no nothing. They literally just went, about the Meg, and they just copyright strike it.
This is erasure, man. This is we're living in Orwellian times where we can't talk about a crappy giant shark movie.
And we read the book. We read The Meg. We read the book. Imagine reading the book The Meg is based on. We did that. And did you read it on your phone? Is that one that you did on your phone?
No, I listened to that one on
he listened to that one. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, Mr. Volpe, he'll read the book on his cellular device.
That I've dropped like 100,000 times.
Yeah, it's just razor wire slashing through his fingers as he's scrolling to read this horrible book. So imagine, we suffer for the craft, and for the people at Lionsgate or whoever the hell made that film, just a big solid,
big old giant shark size fuck you.
Just a giant F you to whoever the hell's in charge of that. Yeah. But enough about that. Let's rock it in. This week's installment, Pet Sematary. Stephen King's reluctant classic. He didn't even really want to turn this one in, but he kind of owed, I think, was it Doubleday Publishers or something? Like he kind of owed them a book to get out of a publishing deal he had with them. So he had this one in the drawer and just threw it at him. Here you go.
Yeah,
and it turned out to be this insane success and kind of one of his classics. So,
yeah, it's funny because it sounded like it. According to King, it was kind of like his dark what if scenario for his own life because it's basically followed events that happened in his life pretty closely. Like he did have a house that was close to a road where a lot of trucks went by, and there was a pet cemetery on his property, and his son, who was 3, almost got hit by one of those giant trucks. So I think he was basically almost as a way to exercise whatever dark thoughts he had from that event. He wrote that book, and I guess it was a little too close to home for him or something.
Yeah, no, I think he talks about that he kind of took a university teaching job in Maine, I think at the University of Maine, and he kind of had this kind of country home, and he had a young family. Their cat, whose name is Smuckers in real life, that he kind of introduced into the book as a cat in the pet cemetery. There's a grave for Smuckers, and the same kind of scene where Louis Creed and Ellie kind of talk about let God have his own cat. It was real that his daughter actually said something similar or whatever about their cat that got, I guess, killed by a truck. So kind of interesting that he just insert black magic wizardry and sacred grounds and all that nonsense, and then you got a hit.
Yeah, well, it's kind of interesting because I feel like this story out of I haven't read all of King's stories, and there's some
who has.
Yeah, well, there's definitely some I'm more well versed in than others, but this one seems like the most a scary campfire story than all of the others. It doesn't have much of a arc to it.
Oh no, it's the most nonsense. Simple.
Yeah, and that's the thing is I think of his biggest most well-known books is like my least favorite of them, but like I like it. I guess I admire it, kind of, sort of. But yeah, it is like I don't know, just aggressively unpleasant. Not really terrible, but like the book and I think the first movie, not so much this remake, somewhat, but like it's like just tries to give you all the weird unpleasantness of dealing with like a child's death and all the emotional baggage that brings.
Yeah, I think it's Doubleday, but the publisher was kind of hesitant to publish it just because the main subject matter is a little kid getting killed.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So and then spoilers. I mean, we're gonna get into this, but I mean, of course, you know what I mean. But yeah, to have your kind of main character, you know, little guy, little 2-year-old be killed, and then he comes back in horrific fashion. He's just dropping F-bombs, talking about ladies doing, unpleasant things in hell and all that good stuff. Straight out of The Exorcist. So,
yeah,
it was probably a little challenging for them. You know what I mean? But what I like to say, money solves all problems and/or concerns. You know what I mean? So.
And it was the '80s, and every single thing Stephen King touched, like that was right in the middle of his golden streak. I think
all that cocaine,
right? All the cocaine, yeah,
all the cocaine in the world. Because it was the book written in the '70s. Was it '76 or something that it came out?
Oh yeah, I mean I know the book wasn't
1983.
Published. 83 was the publishing, but yeah.
So that's mid coke, pre AIDS. That is the good old '80s for you.
Well, I think he said that Cujo was when he was at the absolute height of his drug use, because he doesn't remember writing it at all. He's always like, oh yeah, the one day the book just appeared in my lap, and it's kind of nice, but yeah, I have no recollection of writing it.
Oh, what a time to be alive. You know what I mean? What
seriously.
a time. But let's go ahead and get into it. So I mean, I've done extensive research, and by that I mean we read the book, obviously, and then we watched the 1989 original.
Yeah.
Mary Lambert's. We watched the sequel.
Oh, you watched it too?
Oh, did you watch it?
Yeah, I just finished
Pet
it
Sematary
right before. 2. Oh man. And boy, am I glad that we took the time out of our life to admire that work of art.
Edward Furlong starring.
Ooh, yeah, and Clancy
Dr.
Brown.
Green from ER and Clancy Brown.
I didn't realize Clancy Brown was in it. He's
you didn't realize this until before you started watching, or you did realize he was in it?
It's weird because it's one of the movies I have some really strange, vague recollection of, because it was on HBO when I was like 5 or 6 or something. Like I have like early memories of seeing promos for it, so I just remember it existing, but it was before I knew who Clancy Brown and Edward Furlong were, and I didn't really know what Pet Sematary itself was too for a long time. I just always kind of knew it by Pet Sematary 2, and it's interesting because Pet Sematary 2 is way, way more terrible than the first one.
It's so weird, like it just because just looking into it a little bit, just reading, literally just going around Wikipedia, whatever. But it's the same director who did the first one.
Yeah, it seems like a totally different director then,
or a different feel. It's Mary Lambert again. She came back, and she was like, "Yeah, I'd love to. What do you do? Okay, so how many?" It's supposed that basically Lewis, the wife, Rachel, Gage, obviously, Church, they're all dead, basically kind of at the end of the first film, right? And then so naturally you would assume kind of like, yeah, should we have it about the one surviving character, Ellie? No. We don't think a teenage girl really has what it takes to lead this film. Let's go get Edward Furlong, who just did Terminator 2.
Yeah, and it's so funny because it seemed like they were like had, I don't know, leftover unused footage from Terminator in certain scenes of it, because there's definitely like some bike chases that were really reminiscent of T2.
It's hilarious because they're like, hey, you know what you look good in? Let's get you a big leather jacket.
Yeah.
Let's get you on a bike.
You're getting chased by a bully with some weird early 90s earring in.
Can we talk about the bully for a second? Like, what was his motivation?
I have no idea. I feel like,
hey, we got a new kid in town. His mom just died. Let's just fucking ruin his life.
Well, there were so many things. There's one scene where the bully scares Edward Furlong by, like, Edward Furlong's walking through the forest and he hears his dead mom calling him and he sees her. And then she suddenly turns into a dummy, and it turns out it was the bully the whole time. But it, like, doesn't make any sense. Like, it's not like the bully threw his voice, or, like, the bully's not magic or whatever. Like, there's many things in that movie that, like, just don't make sense from
this is a theme that kind of transcends the films and the book.
Yeah.
Of just kind of, you know me and my rules. Like, what are the goddamn rules of this universe, dude? You've got dead people, you've got ghosts, you've got Pascal, you've got The Shining going on, you've got prophecies, you've got, what the hell is going on? There's just what is this, a haunted house movie? Like, what is going on, dude?
So I don't think we should judge the rules by Pet Sematary 2. Pet Sematary 2 is the one we should, like, just table because it's a bunch of bullshit.
You know what I mean? And honestly, and in addition to the novel, obviously, the 3 films that we watched, really enjoyed the South Park episode that kind of...
Oh, yeah. South Park has ruined
Margarine,
this movie.
right? Yeah.
The story, you know?
Oh, it's so good, though. I mean,
it's amazing.
They capture the absolute stupidity of the story of kind of, just to get into it, the kind of the Judd Crandall, right? Judd, the character that is just in the book kind of the good old boy that you just like, oh, he'd be the best neighbor to have, and then in the first film he's kind of great, and
I always kind of thought of, like, when I read the book, I remember I always pictured Wilson from Home Improvement.
Oh, exactly.
You know
what
I mean?
More
like,
could you want?
It's kind of like that pseudo father figure, nice, always there to help.
Was that the same actor?
No, actually, I don't know, but I don't think so. I definitely know he was the judge in My Cousin Vinny, and I think he's been in a few other things. I think he was in, like, A Time to Kill, or one of those, like, racist South dramas from the 90s. He had a run of movies, and I think this was one of them, but damn, he just kills this role. And he kind of he was the one that made what worked in the 1989 version work for the most part, I think. Like, I don't think the 1989 version is, like, fantastic, but honestly, on this rewatching, I liked it a little bit more because I just remember really not liking it the first time I watched it, like, a long, long time ago. And the only things that really, like, stuck with me are the same things that everyone remembers, which is the fucking Achilles tendon being torn. And but which is, like, the thing, like, I feel like if you ask most people, that's the first thing and the only thing they know about the story, right?
For sure.
Because
no, go ahead.
Yeah, I just don't think there's, like, I think the thing I didn't like about it originally, and this was included with the story, was there isn't much to it. Like, it's just like these people are doomed, and then you watch them die in horrible fashion, and it's you don't learn really much from it, and, like, what's the point of the whole thing? And I think the second time around, and it might be maybe because I started thinking about how it isn't that different structurally from, say, Hereditary, which I loved. That was, like, my favorite movie of last year. But so I think I appreciated stuff in it that I didn't get the second time around now. Like, now that I'm a cat owner, or now that I'm, like, a little bit older and can kind of picture having a kid and everything like that. That stuff, it's basically, this is like a worst case scenario for any parent getting played out, and it's almost like some sort of torture porn for yourself. But it's not really meant to be enjoyed. But for that reason, I don't think there is much to the story. Like, I don't think Stephen King really, like, has a a whole mythology really drawn out for this. Like I think
he doesn't George R.R. Martin. He doesn't even give me a George Lucas level of world building here.
Well, it's weird because Stephen King, and maybe I'm wrong. Like you'll have to ask. Like there's some really knowledgeable Stephen King heads out there that will probably correct me on this later, but like it seems like for a lot of his stories they're all connected. There's some sort of thing, like the Randall Flagg the Walking Man is actually like 5 different characters in books that you never realized, and all this other shit, and secret government groups made the rift in the mist that also blah 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 blah. But for this I feel like he's kind of like some sort of vague Native American mythology.
Yeah, the Indians. That's Indian background. Yeah. But the Indians knew that.
But it's funny because I've also never read The Shining, but I feel like the other one that's probably closest to King's own life that kind of scares him, that he also kind of didn't like, at least the film version of it, he didn't like. I kind of wonder if the ones that are closer to home, like, aren't things that he enjoys, but just him kind of playing out, like, these terrible what-if scenarios. Like, that's probably what really scares Stephen King. He can talk about, like, fucking clowns killing kids as much as you want, but I bet the thing that really does scare him are, things that, like, what if he was a terrible parent, worst case scenario.
I'm sure just coked out of his mind, drunk. I'm sure he was a bang-up dad when he was for his toddlers.
And, like, I mean, I don't know. I gotta imagine he was probably a good enough dad. Like, I honestly have no idea, but like,
no idea. No, can't judge.
I can't imagine someone that was that prolific in the 80s could, with the drug habit, could have been around as much. And then, like I remember I was hearing about the whole. Did you ever see that movie Maximum Overdrive? With the trucks?
I've seen scenes of it, and I'm sure I've seen it on cable or TNT or something. The premise is that machines come alive and kill people.
Well, it's machines come alive, but it's mostly just these trucks, and it's a terrible
semis.
Movie. Yeah, it's a fucking awful movie. It's a wonderfully terrible movie. In fact, it's actually pretty good to watch because
when it gets remade, we'll reread the book.
You joke, but I wouldn't be too surprised. But yeah, like, so he directed that. That's the one thing he ever actually directed, and it's really sad because for such a shitty movie, the director of photography actually lost an eye because Stephen King told him to shoot a low-angle shot of a lawnmower, and it like kicked up like a metal blade or something like that, and went right into this old Italian director of photography's eye, and the dude was never able to work again because of Stephen King. And like, the thing was, everyone told Stephen King they didn't need to actually have a blade in the motor of the lawnmower, but because King was a novice director, he insisted on it, so it is 100% King's fault. And there was all these other weird coincidences, like they had the same birthday and all this other shit, so that was right in the middle of the 80s, in the middle of the height of his fame and his drug addiction, so I must have imagined he was like a fucking nutcase, like...
Well, God bless that poor gentleman, and we hope he's smiling on down from heaven just at Stephen King. And
yeah, I feel like...
I hope he took him to the goddamn cleaners, and Stephen King is still writing those checks. All right, so, just to kind of get back into it a little bit with the differences just in between, the novel, which is infinitesimally better and more detailed. I mean, of course.
Yeah.
Of course, has so much more to go. But, Lewis... I don't know if you do, I don't think Lewis, or I think 89 Lewis is the most likable. In the book, he's not incredibly likable. He seems kind of like a trapped man, like an unhappy, trapped, kind of insecure, you name it.
Yeah, I mean,
just
you don't
unhappy.
Really get that good. I never felt like... in most of the versions of the story, I don't feel like I ever got that good of a read on him. Like, he's mostly like, I feel like the characters, like, they're not like badly written, but they're vaguely drawn. Like, you really don't know that much about them except for, the wife has the one defining character trait because she's traumatized about Zelda and can't face death, and the kids are just there. In all the versions, the son is like just totally like a prop to be put in danger's way, and then the girl is just there to kind of be like this innocent symbol asking about death. But I don't really feel like, I feel like, I don't know if it's intentional or not, but it's kind of like, because they're so vaguely drawn, people can project themselves onto them. That's why it's kind of a little bit scarier, because it's probably a worst case scenario for any parent or person in the audience, as well as King himself.
Yeah. I think the less you know, the less you know about him, the more you can kind of appreciate him. And I think the film versions, the 2019 and the 89, you feel kind of like, this guy's just, he says it in 2019, he says it kind of a lot more, where he's kind of, I left that job behind because I wanted to spend more time with you and all this stuff. And
right.
In the book, you get the sense that he's just kind of running away almost from like her parents a little bit, because they're in Chicago, her family's in Chicago. He wanted to kind of strike out on his own almost, in a sense, to get away from them a little bit.
It's been a while since I've read the book, so is it like the parents, is her family rich, and is like her father overbearing, and that's why he's running away, or
sort of? I mean, the motivations are a little bit unclear. The motivations in The Shining are very clear, why he is, Jack Torrance is taking the job at the Overwatch Hotel. Like, he's desperate, man. He's got to do it.
Yeah.
In this book, it's kind of the same thing, where it's a family moving for a different opportunity because of the dad. Like, Jack Torrance is a complete fuck up, and that's why he has to go take this job. Whereas Creed is not as big of a screw up. He's a doctor, but he wanted to change kind of the type of things that he wants to do, to try to get away from them.
Yeah, so did he just move to Maine specifically to get away from because I feel like, it's a Stephen King book, so everyone always ends up in Maine somehow, but like it's not like he was ousted or whatever. I guess he just landed.
I'm trying to remember what the
landed
deal is exactly.
A university job, right? So there's probably some. Wasn't it like some elite sort of Boston-y college or something?
This one's just the local Ludlow University that he ends up teaching at or something. But in the 19, he leaves Boston, and I think they made the change later on in the movie. I think it makes more sense of why they kind of changed it from Chicago to Boston.
Yeah.
Kind of helps the third act, where Rachel has her freak out and breakdown, and it's easier for her to kind of reappear.
Yeah, I feel like instead, the remake seemed like it made a few conscious decisions to not do what the 1989 version did, and that was one of them. Like, instead of having this long, drawn-out several scene sequence of her like flying back, all you need is the one quick shot of her waiting in traffic driving back to Derry or whatever. Because
in the book it's a whole rigmarole. It's like she goes to a frigging, she basically I don't know. We'll come back to it, but it doesn't make any sense. It's a nonsense scenario.
Didn't the first movie kind of
the first movie does a better capturing kind of that scene where she has to
she's basically the mom from Home Alone.
Basically, exactly. If you've seen Home Alone, that's her. And imagine her. She's running home because she thinks something might be awry, and her daughter had a bad dream.
Yeah, and because her daughter probably has The Shining or something like that. They definitely seem like her dreams seem to be way too accurate, so it's safe to assume Stephen King thinks every fucking kid has some sort of psychic power or something.
Oh, of course. Yeah, so that's a whole nother thing. If she's got the shine, you know what I mean, what's going on, she can kind of tell the future and all that nonsense. But why they moved there, it's neither here nor there. You know what I mean? They come down, they moved down from Chicago in the novel. They moved over. They moved What, up? I don't know. Where's Maine?
Up and
It's
to
all,
the
it's
right,
all,
slightly
it's all Canada. It's all Canada to me.
northeast, I guess.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. So they, meet in with Judd, and I think, I love how the novel and the '89 film kind of introduced Judd as this. They scoop him up. I think in '89 he kind of rescues Gage out of the street. And then in the book, he just kind of comes over. Hey, how are you guys doing?
I think in the book he Gage gets stung by a bee. I think in the movie the girl gets stung by a bee, but
right.
in the book,
someone gets stung by a bee, either Gage.
Yeah.
Because the 2019 borrowed some of that where it's not gonna it's a big one, but it's not gonna be a prize winner, but it's gonna something along that. That was all just taken straight from the book.
Right.
But the 19 version of Chuck, or no, Judd rather, sorry, is just kind of my least favorite in that he just seems kind of like a creepy old man who lives alone. He's just kind of, what are you doing wandering through the woods, dude?
The way he was introduced in this one was like, I don't know if it's just the fact that in the age we live in, people's attitudes...
Stranger danger?
Yeah, people's attitudes towards strangers might have changed a lot, but I feel like I'm definitely on the mom side of not wanting to talk to him in this one, because he looked fucking crazy and he was super creepy.
Right.
Yeah. And so...
he looks disheveled.
In all of the versions of the story, I guess one slight thing that I have an issue with, I guess, is... Judd, especially in the first version, the '89 movie, he's creepy for no reason sometimes. There's parts in it where the camera just dollies in on his face, and he's like, "Oh, I'm not going to tell you about what's up there." And the girl looks scared, and then he's like, "Oh, I'm not trying to scare you." But it's like, why the fuck did you just say that? You know what I mean? There's
right.
And so I suppose you can explain it away in all of them. And I can't remember if the book goes into it or not. But maybe you could say whatever evil force is drawing the family towards this place is it's almost like they're predestined to go to this place. And
right. Well, and that's kind of where the South Park episode is so funny, because this man basically leads them exactly on the path of destruction that they probably would have never encountered without him.
Yes.
They never would have discovered, oh, my cat died, and that could have been it. No movie. My cat got hit by a truck. That's it.
Yeah. It's really frustrating, and it really totally... I think that's the thing, I totally forgot before I rewatched everything, and it really makes you like the character a lot less, because
he's a terrible person.
Yeah.
But I love him. You know what I mean?
I mean, he's the best
great,
character.
But at the same time, he's just a piece of shit.
Yeah, and I think I kind of did a quick Wikipedia reread on the book, just kind of refresh my memory, and just so I could, because there's a few things. It was a while since I read the book, so there's a few differences I remember from the book and the movie versions. But one in this Wikipedia reread I caught was I think Judd's wife is still alive in the book version. So
that's a huge thing, is that no other versions have Norma, the goddamn wife, alive. And that also helps kind of humanize him, is that he's not just a creepy old weird dude who lives by himself. No, it's just this elderly couple kind of that they make cookies, and they, he sits out on the porch and drinks some beers and hangs out, and Norma's in there, making cookies, and that kind of ingratiates in themselves into the family dynamic over with the Creeds, and they become kind of a trusted, just neighbors that they can trust Norma to kind of watch the kids if need be. The '89 version just kind of gets rid of Norma altogether, replaces her with this creepy, weird Mindy housekeeper kind of character.
Yeah, so Mindy was not in the book, right?
No.
Okay,
no.
That threw me off in the whole her hanging herself thing. I was like, where the hell did this come from?
Because in that she kind of suffers from a stomach pain.
Okay.
Right. Okay, but Norma had ulcerative, not ulcerative, like arthritis, was it rheumatoid arthritis, like kind of like the worst one, and then just has like a heart attack.
Right, I remember. Well, the heart attack is where the doctor comes in and helps.
Mm-hmm.
See, that's
Lewis,
the whole reason. Like, the wife is really important. Judd's wife is really important, is because it's the one thing that kind of explains his motivation for showing them the pet cemetery to save the cat. You know, like by the doctor saving his wife, Judd like probably feels like he owes him one. So when he's in this dilemma where
let me ruin your whole life.
Yeah.
No, but like he's like, you know what? I buried my dog Spot. And the results were mixed.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So let me pass the savings on to you.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. What the hell are you doing, dude?
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like you went
stupid.
through this already. What are you talking about? Oh, wouldn't your daughter love a half dead demon cat, zombie cat? No.
Yeah, there
never
seems to be any sort of upside from it.
What is the upside? Get a new cat.
Yeah,
like I had cats.
It's just like any loved
rock
one.
On to the next one, dude.
I guess it's supposed to say something about, like, you know, if you lose someone you love so dearly.
Well, and the 19 movie kind of went into this, where he's like, I just didn't want her to be sad. Like, what? Oh, what?
Like, I just kind of assume it's this, it's some sort of otherworldly magic that is drawing all these characters to this thing that they can't control. Or it's lazy writing, like.
It's lazy.
Yeah, it feels
like
a little.
It's
like I don't think about it too much because, like I said, it kind of has that, campfire ghost story feel. So it's like the logic hasn't probably been filled in too much on this and everything. And but I don't think that's the point. I think the whole point is it's basically like, let's watch this whole family so slowly, like, just disintegrate and everything.
Right. It's very strange. All the different versions of all the different undead characters are wildly inconsistent.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, on one hand, you've got Timmy Baterman, who is kind of like the World War I or World War... I can't remember which war he came
I think in the book it's
from.
World War II. And
right. And then in this one they did Vietnam vet or something, right? That came back. And then just how those characters seem to act. And the 89 version of Timmy Baterman, because they actually show him, they kind of show him in like a flashback when Judd is kind of explaining, hey, don't resurrect your daughter. It's not the best.
Yeah, and, I mean, he's basically... they're pretty much zombies. They're not quite zombies,
well,
but...
No, so this is the kind of the thing, because in the 89 version, Timmy Baterman looks like a drunk, like, zombie. He just looks like a straight-up zombie. And then in the book, which is the craziest version of all the kind of undead characters, he is basically... She's Reagan from The Exorcist.
Yeah.
He is. Because...
Oh, he's saying things like that only other, like,
Satan himself or whoever the hell would know.
Right,
yeah, like,
right.
Because Judd is kind of recounting this story of why you shouldn't probably go bury your damn daughter in your son in the Micmac burial grounds. Is that they, once upon a time back when he was a younger lad, he and his buddies hopped in the car and went and confronted kind of the father of this guy and said, you know what, not the best. He's a goddamn abomination. Can't be wandering around scaring people and all this shit. So they kind of confront him, and Timmy Baterman, who's a goddamn zombie basically, is talking fairly eloquently at them and just destroying them with truth bombs that only they would know. Your wife is doing so and so.
Isn't there a lot of like your wife fucked everyone in town secrets or something? I remember.
Right. So basically, he goes person to person saying brutal, true, in fact things, and Lewis goes, "We don't know exactly." No, it was. So Judd says, he knew about me going to whorehouses, and he threw that in my face. Another guy was like, You spent all you're broke, but all your family thinks you're wealthy and you've got money stashed away, but you're living frugally when really you're broke. Another guy, everyone was banging his wife or something down at the drugstore that she worked at or something like that. Like she was banging the guy that worked with her. So he knew all this kind of, snazzy details. How the hell did he know that? And then different versions basically just have him as a mumbling zombie person.
Yeah, I feel
you know
like...
what I mean? So who is behind the goddamn eyes? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I feel like, the 89 version really just, like, gives him 2 minutes and he's barely in it.
As if they needed a scene to, like, convince you not to do it.
I mean, I feel like that's so much more interesting. That's the thing I kind of wish that this...
Well, I want Pazuzu.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
The same...
I want your mother sucks seas in hell kind of stuff going on.
Yeah, like the thing this new version was kind of fighting to do was trying to, like, be a little different. Like, I feel like that's kind of the problem with such a simple and straightforward story with only, like, 4 characters. It's kind of hard to be different. And I feel like, that's a great example of where they could have just expanded. I feel like they might have well, like, luxuriated in going into every detail and soaking in all the misery of the story and everything like that. And I feel like the movie kind of did, but it still fell short a little bit.
Another kind of huge departure, huge part of the books, huge part of the 89 film is the kind of dynamic with Lewis and the parents. With Rachel's parents, it just doesn't exist in kind of the 2019 film. Huge, kind of a weird. I guess they just didn't feel the need. They didn't have time.
Yeah, I mean, like once again, it's been a while, but in the book, that's a much bigger. That's probably the reason why they moved and all that other stuff.
I think it plays into why they moved. He talks about how. Basically, his father-in-law tried to literally write him a check to stop dating his daughter. Wow. In secret. Rachel didn't know that, still didn't know it to this day. But he kind of said, stick your checkbook right up your ass, dude. Go F yourself. I'm marrying her. I love her, blah, blah, blah. Right.
Well, that's interesting because I feel like that really lays the groundwork for the punch up at the funeral, which I think is one of the shittiest, like in a good way, like the darkest elements of the story. Because in the 89 version, it's there, and it is like one of the darkest parts of the movie, but it's kind of random. It's like, oh, I guess the dad hates him.
Without a lot of that knowledge, you just think he's some grieving crazy guy. He's just having a moment. The book establishes so much about how much they really truly hate each other.
That makes sense.
And so when that scene kind of bubbles up, you're like, oh shit, here we go. Right. And then you're kind of shocked that it's happening, but I don't think you're quite as shocked as like if you don't know that going in and you see the 89 version and they're just it's a goddamn grandpa just fighting and Rachel screaming and stuff. I mean, it's pretty wild, but
that's interesting too because it actually fleshes out the characters a little bit more because like we said, like otherwise there's just kind of like a template of a family. Once again, not poorly written, but like you don't really learn a hell of a lot much about them as personality wise or as people and everything.
Yeah, it helps you to kind of hate them a little bit, like not the grandma. I think Dory's her name, and then Goldman is kind of the the grandfather, father-in-law. Mm-hmm. But you kind of the more you learn, like when Rachel is talking about in the book, she's kind of talking about having to care for her a little bit older sister. I think she was like maybe a few years older than her at the time when she kind of had like spinal meningitis and was dying in like a back room in their house. And that she had to kind of take care of her. And then she dies pretty brutally, kind of, I think, choking. She, like, falls out of bed and then...
dies in front of her or something.
Yeah, right? Dies in front of her. And because her parents had kind of left her alone in the house on, like, a Saturday or something like that. I'm not exact. I can't remember. But basically, the guy, like... It was explained why they were leaving, but it had something to do with like his business, I think.
Right.
That he chose to go like, I have to go do that instead of like being at home with his daughter, who's like dying. So she's kind of haunted by this kind of guilt that she didn't save her sister, or she kind of indirectly killed her.
Right.
And then which is another weird thing that they just kind of put into the story, that like it was a weird thing for King to just put in. Like,
yeah,
in the book, I think it serves its purpose, where she's kind of rattled by death, and she's rattled by kind of all this weirdness, but in the movies do a weird thing where they kind of like inject it into, like, for scares. Like, the 19 is the biggest jump scare in the movie is all this weird Zelda stuff.
Aside from the Achilles tendon in the 89 version, the Zelda stuff is the only thing that people remember. And it seemed like it definitely, I feel like in all the versions it does serve that purpose to kind of explain the character's fear of death. But, just what you were telling me in the book stuff that I had forgotten, like, that just tells me so much more about her. I don't know, it just seemed to inform her attitude way more. But yeah,
she's like very, the whole thing, like, she hates any mention of death, and any weirdness, anything associated with death just bothers her. So, in the book and the films, when they, in the 89, in the kind of in the book, when Judd kind of introduces them, like, hey, wouldn't you guys love to see this cool thing? And then when they get there and it's a pet cemetery, she just thinks it's creepy and morbid and weird, and her daughter shouldn't be exposed to it, and she's kind of upset. And then, in this version, a little bit, the whole way they discover the pet cemetery is weird, with the procession of kids and stuff like that. I didn't get that from the I didn't understand all the marketing was all about these kids.
Yeah, that's like something that you stick in to make for a creepy trailer. Like, I feel like little kids with animal masks is so on the nose. But like, and they had some things that they added that I think worked well, but that in particular kind of like did not get anything for me.
What else do you got? The Pascal stuff is weird, where in the book he's kind of like weird, ghostly, ghouly specter, and then in the 89 film he's kind of basically like a werewolf in London type character, right. Where he's kind of like, oh, I'm your friend that's dead now, and I'm gonna give you weird advice when like, very strange. And then the character into the 19 version is just totally strange.
Yeah,
where, like,
I gotta admit, I actually thought the 89 version was probably my, once again, the book.
Oh, my favorite version is the 89.
Yeah, like, he's probably the best. That's the best part of the 89 version, is all of his little scenes where he's like sitting on the bus with them or whatever. Just, it's like the one moment of humor. And I feel like that was more organic to that movie, because I don't remember it being quite as, like, kind of tongue-in-cheek as it was.
And then that 19 is just creepy, because he's basically haunting Gage now, where he's just standing in a corner. Gage is freaking out.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, there's no one here. What are you looking at? And it's just he's just in there with him. Just staring at him. And I'm like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That would probably freak me out.
He doesn't have as much personality as the other one. Like, he's cool. Like, the effects are cooler. Like, the one thing that really stands out is the one shot where he's, like, standing in the mist, and, like, he's kind of, like, fading in and out with the mist and everything. But and
just very strange. Like, what is his purpose? Like, what is his role?
Yeah, I mean, in all of the stories, it's unclear. Totally useless. Like, but I feel like that was like a Stephen King trope that he was kind of on during that period for a while, where he kept on having the person that's like the character that's there from the beginning, that's like kind of almost supposed to be the rescuing force, like kind of like the sheriff in Misery, or there's The Shining, the caretaker in The Shining and everything like that. Like, these people that are, oh, you think they're gonna come in and save the day, and oh no, they just totally fail. And he kind of is that. He's like the one potential source of hope in a weird way in the story, but it seems like even he knows that they're doomed anyways. But could have done it like,
well, it's weird because he goes, "Oh, you tried to help me, Doc. So let me weirdly haunt your family and then not really accomplish any sort of goal. Let me in a way usher your wife back to her own death."
Yeah, like I mean,
You know what I mean?
just like Judd, everyone in the story that supposedly is like helping you, it's like one of those things where if you just didn't say anything in the first place, you'd be
just
fine.
literally don't. Yeah, and what's crazy about Judd is that he is the quintessential mind your own goddamn business. I'll be on my side of the property. I'm gonna go chop firewood. I'm gonna keep to myself.
Yeah.
And then nope, he's like, yeah, you know what? Let me clue you in on this.
Yeah.
There's some real magic shit going on here.
My question is, like, if Judd hadn't said anything, how many fucking people would have found, like, not the pet cemetery, but the Indian burial ground? It seems like it's many, many, many miles up, like, very...
it's an arduous journey. It doesn't sound easy to get to at all.
And, like, usually for some reason it's always, like, thundering and lightning, and, like, it seems like not a fun trek.
Oh, there's goddamn wendigos out there. There's demons. There's all kinds of rustling and craziness out there. And then in the no, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. In the book, do they actually encounter the Wendigo? That's one thing.
Sort of, yeah, exactly. I was gonna say they encounter some sort of weird big face that like rolls out its tongue. It's like a goat's head. I'm trying to remember, but it's like some weird. I'm trying to remember. It's the book, so it's like. I think it was like a goat's head, and it like rolls its tongue out, and then like worms are coming out of its tongue, or it's got like scales that start like peeling and opening or something. I'm trying to remember, but yeah, it's he hallucinates, and he's like, "Oh, Judd said it's just the Northern Lights." So, yeah, if you start seeing some real creepy shit,
I mean, I'm pretty sure once
Lights,
you see some weird demon monster. That's usually when you turn around and say, I'm going to just bury my cat in my backyard or something. But, once again, this is either lazy writing or some sort of otherworldly force drawing them. And
it's just it's like the worst kept secret in this small town.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, you know what? Like, why don't we just,
I
do something about it?
I keep on wondering, like, once again, maybe, like, it's just a this day and age kind of thing, but like, would families whose kids get run over by like gas companies' trucks, wouldn't they like be able to sue the shit out of the gas company? Wouldn't that be like, if this happened a lot consistently and it was a lot of the same company's trucks, wouldn't somebody do something about that? Like, I feel like there'd be a lot of lawsuits, and then am I just crazy, or is that...
Well, those gas companies, I don't know if you've heard, but I think they make a lot of money, and I think they got plenty of lawyers that could come out with any such nonsense.
True.
But in the book, at least they kind of allude to the driver is sort of under a spell, and this is another one of those weird things where it goes into like, he never, he didn't, like, you're with the driver basically as he's gonna run over Gage in the book.
Okay.
And he's like listening to music, and he's like, man, or something like that. And then he just thought, let's put the pedal to the metal. You know what I mean? He was jamming out, and they talk about how like someone knows someone who knows the driver or something. So after the incident, he's like suicidal, tried to kill himself. His wife left him. And he, had never had any history of anything. It was as if some sort of force was pulling him into, committing the murder. It was totally out of character.
And that force was called lazy writing.
Exactly. The invisible hand of Stephen King's lazy ass cocaine writing, that just, just explain away whatever the hell's going on.
It's the Dark Tower. It's Randall Flagg. Who cares?
Yeah, exactly. No. People just, the whole area is like, what is it, dude? Is the ground sour? Okay, but the trees, the woods, everything. Like, how far does this land? What is the scope of the land? Is it some sort of creature? Is it the devil? Is it evil itself, like in It, where he just goes, "Yep, it's just evil." Pennywise is just evil.
Yeah, I mean,
it's just the power of love defeats it.
Yeah, like once again, I'm just saying it. I think like logically, I think it's like okay, somehow this is like predestined. These people are all doomed. They're drawn here inextricably. But I feel like we need to get into the meat of it because I mean, like.
And by meat of it, do you want to talk about how many toddlers do you think you could kill?
How many toddlers I think I could kill?
Well, how many undead Gage characters do you think you could handle at once?
Well, I mean, is he got a scalpel or?
Yeah, he's got a scalpel.
Or does he have the weird cane and top hat in that one? What was up with that?
Let's load him up. He's got everything. That's one of the greatest surviving gifts I think of the '89 film is like an undead baby just slathered in like just like cream makeup or something, just doing some weird dance. How did they get the kid to do that?
Well, I don't know. Like, I somehow always had it in my head because it had been years since I rewatched the '89 version that I always thought that it was a midget or like a dwarf or a little person or whatever.
No, you know what though is that Zelda in the '89 film was a stunt man. It was an actual like a man that they put in the dress and the wig and everything.
That makes sense. I could
because no woman wants to be no woman wants that credit.
Plus, he's probably got one of those Doug Jones types of bodies where like only 1 out of like 5 million people have that. Type
I mean,
of
that's
body.
one of the creepiest things in that movie is when she's yelling, "You'll never get out of bed again.
Yeah.
You'll never get out of bed again."
Yeah, honestly, for me, like that's one of the parts. I always have, I have scoliosis, so I have a pretty thick stomach when it comes to like most things, especially in horror movies. But like one of my personal triggers is anything to do with like back stuff. So every time I look at her back and that and anything like that, it just gives me that like when you get that like weird like deep like feeling in your gut or something like that, like yeah, it definitely gets me there. This version, I gotta say, okay, so was this newest version, was that R or PG-13?
Oh, it was hard R.
Really? Okay, because that's the one thing is I wish it went a little,
I'm pretty sure.
little bit harder. Like it was good.
No, I totally agree. I can only tell you, I think it's R just based on
because
the language in the film. I think they said fuck.
Oh, did they?
More than once. I think PG-13 gives you 1.
Okay.
And the rated R, you're just rocking and rolling.
Yeah, it says R, I guess. That's like, man, I wish they like went.
It's less gory than the '89. I thought.
Yeah, I was gonna say the '89 actually still kind of hit me more.
The way they do Judd in '89 is just brutal.
Oh yeah, especially I remember the Achilles tendon, but I forgot about the slash across the mouth.
Oh yeah, the mouth great. And everything. And I think they did that for Lithgow. Like, do you think Lithgow was like, listen, I'm fucking John Lithgow. You're not gonna have me just doing goofy shit where I'm covered in blood. You're gonna have me off screen get killed.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well,
I think that was a Lithgow agent moment where they were like, listen, I don't want him on screen getting stabbed.
Yeah. You don't even have to show it for the most part. There were certain things like that. Like I will say for the Lithgow thing, I thought that's one of the few moments in the movie where it's like, oh hey, we're doing something different, that I actually thought was okay. But there were certain other elements, like I wished that they just went gorier on, most specifically, like you could go gorier on it, but you still don't have to show it. Like the biggest example of that in my head was with the daughter, when, to skip ahead, when the dad's digging up the daughter and everything like that, they have this overhead shot of him no, it's when the dad's burying the daughter in the Indian burial ground, and they have this overhead shot of the dad like covering her body up with dirt, and I just kept on thinking, it's like if they had like messed her face up or like implied that she was like totally disfigured, it would be so much creepier. Like she's immaculately, like, later on, it's kind of creepy, but all
they had what did they do to her? Did they pull stuff down? Is that digital that they did that, or is that practical like makeup stuff where they moved her like eyelids around?
Yeah,
like
I feel like
her eyebrows and stuff.
I honestly don't know at this point. Like,
like
the eye had to be practical.
Like palsied half her face or something.
Yeah, and the eye was like a good touch, and I like how her skin was really pale and you could see the veins. Like I thought the scene with the daughter in the bathtub
With the stapled head.
That was effective. That was like when I started to perk up a little bit because I was like, oh, this is where the movie might be going in a totally different direction. And then the rest of the movie, the daughter kind of let me, like, I thought the actress was good, but I still felt like I wasn't like super interested in the daughter character after that. Like
compared to Gage, how did you feel?
I feel like just a creepy 4-year-old trying to kill you with a scalpel, or a creepy like 2-year-old or whatever.
I think he's 2.
Yeah. So 2-year-old with scalpel.
He could barely run. Like he could barely walk.
Yeah. So I feel like he's way creepier. Like though theoretically, a 9-year-old would probably be able to cause a little bit more damage. It's just the image of the younger the kid, the more fucked up it is if they're trying to kill you. You know what I mean? So, yeah. And it just felt like, I felt like they made that decision to switch it up to the girl, because, the actress...
The old gender swap.
Yeah. And they even did that. Like, the thing is, I wish they did... If they were going to do that, I thought that was fine, but I kind of... I mean, maybe if the trailer hadn't spoiled it, I would be more into it. But I thought the whole fake out where you think it's going to be Gage and ends up being the daughter instead, like, it felt, having seen that reveal in the trailer, like, kind of cheap. Like, it's one of the things that really points out.
Yeah, like, I think it was a calculated risk on their part where they were like, let's get people to be like, oh, this is new, this is different. Let's go see how different it is.
And it's like, and that's the thing that sucks, is like, it's like the filmmakers knew, hey, everyone probably most of the people watching this movie have watched the original, and there really is the question of like, what are we doing different that makes this version, like, why does this exist unless we're just trying to get your money? But I will say the acting is better. Like, I feel like we're in that period where we're just digging up any old Stephen King property, and it's kind of justified in and of itself, because this is the first time we're really able to provide them with the sort of visual effects and budget and acting that could actually, like, there's so many 80s versions of his stories that are just awful, and
like just spectacularly so.
Yeah, and that just like totally, not to say everything King's done has been great. He's definitely churned out some clunkers and everything, but like there's like plenty of things, like probably the most obvious example is like something like The Stand or The Long Walk that I'm sure somebody's going to adapt at some point soon. But
I think Salem's Lot is coming. They're going to redo
great.
Salem's Lot. Yeah. And the poor. I mean, it's hit or miss because you got It, which is like holy shit, greatest thing ever, and then you've got the Dark Tower with McConaughey. Right. The McConaissance, I think, is. Well, I think it's over, baby. It's over.
That kind of disappointed me because the character he plays in the Dark Tower is also the same character that's in The Stand.
Right.
And when I was reading The Stand, I was like, it's impossible not to picture this as Matthew McConaughey. So
right. And then they got poor man's Matthew McConaughey to do like the 95 miniseries or something, right?
And the miniseries, like, I tried watching it and it's abysmal. Like, and it sucks. It seems like there's some good performances and they had some good actors and everything like that, but that's a great example of not having the budget. And there's some guy, God, what's his name? There's one specific director that King loved to work with who did like most of his like adaptations in the 80s and 90s. I think his name... Oh, Mick Garris, I think his name is. But he did... so many... I think he did It. I think he did... all those, like, TV miniseries that he used to do on ABC and everything. And he did The Stand. And, he's just the most uninteresting filmmaker. And you kind of get the idea that King liked to work with him because he probably just said yes to whatever idea King had. So... King usually wrote the scripts for his movies, and King's a terrible script writer, so they're just bad all around. Like, he did the remake of The Shining they did for ABC.
Right, with the guy from Wings or something.
Yeah, I mean, not good stuff all around. So what did you feel? Like, do you feel like this remake, like, do you think it validates its own existence, or?
Yeah, I didn't enjoy it. I mean, I was like, just be over, just be done.
I was pretty bored.
Like let's
through a lot.
Let's just rock and roll. Yeah, like the interesting thing I thought was, are they gonna kill the kid on screen, or are they gonna just not do it? And they don't do it. Of course. So that was kind of one thing left that I was kind of intrigued by. They had the old switcheroo where Rachel kills him and then buries him, and then in the book, and then 89 it's kind of the other way around, where the Gage character had kind of killed Rachel, and Lewis goes ahead and buries her, and then she comes back, and then the 89 version kind of leaves you hanging where you assume she goes ahead and kills him so that she could go ahead and do it. In the 2019, she goes ahead and kills him to save zombie Ellie, and then they're kind of a zombie family, and then they go get Gage and assumedly zombify his little ass up. You know what I mean? So
that last shot of Gage like staring at the window at them, like you're supposed to really feel like, oh no, don't kill Gage. And like I really I have no emotional attachment to him. Like he literally only existed in the movie to be dangled. He's just there to be an object of something that can be put in danger or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't think we've talked much about him, but shout out to the 4 cats that played Church in this damn movie.
Oh, really? I was wondering how. So was it all practical cats? There was no
It's 4 different cats
or whatever.
No, I don't think so. And then can we talk about I was so disturbed by the death scene in the 89 version where he kills Church that I was like, I need to know that a cat wasn't killed on screen for this.
Yeah, actually a lot of this stuff. Yeah, there was a lot of stuff like that.
And I think there was 7 cats that did that version.
Really?
How do they get these cats? Like, where do they find these cats that are just spitters like this? You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I always wonder, what do they do? What do you do to make an animal act like it's limping without, hurting it? You know what I mean?
It's just a good cat actor.
You joke, but probably. And that cat
No,
probably
I'm
more than us.
Oh, I know. But I was like, the 89 cat death is so convincing and weird, that you feel like you're watching a snuff film. You know what I mean? I'm like, am I watching a World Star Hip Hop with this, you know what I mean? This cat is getting
well, I kind of felt that way a little bit with the kid death in that one version too. Something about it kind of just kind of crying, acting like it's fussy and doesn't want to lay down for a nap and everything, and just to think of that.
Right. My favorite part, other than the tap dancing scene, where when he lays into the throat bite to maul the jugular.
Yeah.
On Judd to really finish the job. And I wish I could have just been there when she's directing this toddler. Of okay, I really need you to bite into his neck there. You know what I mean?
I'm telling you, man. Are you sure there wasn't a little person stunt double or something?
Ooh, I don't think so. I think this kid was a real go-getter. You know what I mean? I think I saw him on Full House later. This is the girls have a penis. Boys have a penis, girls have a vagina. Kindergarten Cop kid.
Oh, okay.
He went on to do some Full House work. I think I remember him on Full House.
Good for him.
But the kid, he's going places. You know what I mean? So he was out there just going for it. Yeah. They got that wig on him.
Wow.
That horrible wig.
Yeah.
Where he looks like a doll, man. What are you doing?
Yeah. Well, I always because I'd always see that scene on TV when I was younger, and I always thought it was Chucky or something like that. It looks kind of like Child's Play a little bit.
It looks like a doll.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, just to kind of wrap it up, final thoughts. How many of those toddlers do you think you could handle at once? And then, big question, how is morphine more powerful than unholy black magic?
That's a loaded question.
I mean, I know he came back from the dead, and he's some sort of demon spawn, and seems to have some kind of, demonic powers, but this chemical will just do the trick.
Yeah, I mean, I never got that, once again, book too long ago to
At least,
remember, but like it.
Give me a silver bullet.
Oh, you know what I was thinking?
Give me something stupid.
You know what I was thinking when I was watching the '89 version is this is like the not fun version of Reanimator. Because have you ever seen Reanimator?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so like it totally gave me flashbacks, like the dude with a needle filled with indeterminate science goop chasing a dead cat who's like possessed or something like that. Like almost the exact same scene plays out in both movies. One is like kind of fun and tongue in cheek, and the other is like, you know, dark and depressing as shit. So there were a couple of shots in this version that kind of did remind me of Evil Dead a little bit, like when the dad is trying to, like, he seems like he's about to decapitate the daughter with the shovel, and he's like lifting it up. Like, definitely the low angle shot reminded me of Evil Dead 2 when they're doing the same thing. And you know, I gotta say the filmmakers did an okay job. Like I think they, you know, there's definitely some talent there. And we had talked before, I think the only movie that either of us are familiar with that they did was Starry Eyes, which was their previous effort. And you said you saw half of it, right?
I watched half, and then I was like, I can't. I mean, this is back in the day. It wasn't one of the. This is one of the early like Netflix movies that was on.
Yeah.
You know, before Netflix just was everything. Everything is on Netflix. This was like, oh man, it's kind of one of those. It got a lot of mumbles. You probably even said, oh yeah, it was good. You know, you should check it out.
It's the type of movie that they would put on Shudder today, and probably is on Shudder.
I know.
And yeah, I just remember that it stuck out in my head that you said you only saw half of it, because I have a distinct memory of Starry Eyes. Like there was like such a definitive point where like I loved the movie, and then like at almost the exact halfway point, the movie just turns a switch and just totally sucks. Like goes from like, oh, this is kind of smart and kind of interesting to, this is just a boring, repetitive slasher movie. And you know, I felt like this new movie of theirs, like it was interesting because the good and bad stuff, instead of being so divided, was kind of like all mixed together. Like I felt like pretty consistently throughout, like, oh, there's a few things that are kind of interesting, there's a few things I kind of like, it's kind of pretty, blah blah blah, and then just a bunch of other stuff that didn't gel so well with me, and it all kind of like balanced out to make it pretty flatline. You know what I mean? If that makes any sense. It just came out as like pretty mediocre overall. Like not terrible. I didn't hate it, you know what I mean? But with all of these things, I've never, you know, with the book and both versions of the movie, I still wasn't, I've never been like, ooh, this is my favorite horror movie story ever, you know what I mean?
No, yeah, it's, you know, nothing about it is really, like, scary. You got a cat, yeah. You got a toddler, you got a 9-year-old dead girl.
I mean, it's scary.
Like, nothing... Clancy Brown coming down a hill at you is the scariest part of any of the films.
Oh man, that movie, they have him like fucking cackling.
With the mashed potato scene at the dinner table and stuff, you know?
Well, he's trying so
that's who
hard.
I'm worried about coming at me.
Yeah.
I don't care about Gage. I'd rather fight one Clancy Brown than 10 Gages.
Well, that was going to be my answer.
Or I'd rather fight 10 Gages than one Clancy
Brown.
Well,
I was going to say, when you were asking how many Gages could I take, I'd be like, I'd just stick my Clancy Brown monster on them and my
How many Clancy
dog.
Browns do you think how many Gages would it take to kill one of those Clancy Browns?
Oh, wait, this is bringing me back to high school. I know this one. Yeah, Clancy Brown beats everyone. We all know this.
All right.
Unless you're Andy Dufresne. He's the only one that...
Yeah, really? Jesus. Or fucking McLeod.
Oh, right.
Well, I think that's as good a place to end it as any. Thank you guys so much for listening. Enjoyed it as always. Love getting into these kind of, you know, I think my final thoughts are that the Marjorie South Park episode greatest encompasses the magic of the story writing. Best character by far. You know, begging Stotch to not bury his son at the Indian burial ground. Nah. My favorite version. Thank you guys again for listening. I think we're going to do... Is it Good Omens? Is that the next...
Yeah, Yes, and I think the Amazon series for it comes out, I want to say late May. Sometime?
Yeah, I think May 31st, I think.
Okay, cool. So that's like I don't know what. That's 2 months.
Just under 2 months probably from now or something like that.
Yeah, I think we can read a book. I think I can read a book on my phone in that time. I'm hoping to.
We're praying like hell. Yeah, we're praying like hell. We got our fingers crossed, and we'll do our best. Yeah. But in the meantime, there may be notable films. We'll pop up. Things that we care to review. There's a little movie called Avengers. It's called
that indie film.
I think there's an Avengers movie.
Yeah, I think I heard something about that. Maybe.
We'll probably, yeah.
Probably nobody's really into that nerd stuff, anyways. That won't.
Honestly, I'm so tired. I'm so tired of it. I might
be out. Well, okay, I take it back. I want to see Spider-Man, but I'm pretty ready to call a little bit of a moratorium on superhero movies in my life for a while.
And speaking of which, we're gonna see Shazam. So we'll catch up on Shazam. I think that might be a me and Ash episode. Mm-hmm. If Mr. Volpe decides to sit it out, from superhero fatigue. So, anything else, anything pops up, just keep it tuned. We'll try to see if we can fit it into our schedules.
If it's something cool and worth watching, we'll probably bullshit about it for a couple hours and hit record. Sure, why not?
We're always down to pod. We're always down to
pod. Anywhere, anytime.
I just text him. Are you up for potting?
Yeah, he just slides. He slides into my DMs. It's like 2 a.m, and he's just like, "Hey, you up? Want a pod?
Want a pod?
DTP.
Down to pod. So we're always down to pod.
Yeah.
But thank you guys so much again. Check us out at thedisorderly.com. We've got craziness over there. We've got a good morning column for you if you want to kind of quickly catch up on everything that kind of happened the day before. All the best movie news, the best tweets, stories, videos, trailers, podcasts, all in one spot for you, so you can kind of be real productive your first couple hours of work each weekday. But follow us on Twitter at Disorderly Media. Follow us on Facebook at Disorderly ENT. Find us at thedisorderly.com. And thank you guys again. We appreciate it. Thanks so much. Talk to you soon.